Thank you so much, Bob. That was a very wonderful introduction, and I really appreciate your comments, so thank you. Well, welcome, everybody. This is wonderful. What a great turnout. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces. I'm just so excited to be here tonight. This is one of those places where you go in and you feel at home right away, so thank you for that. Yes, I am a 40-year resident of Nevada. Very proud to have been here this long. My husband and I have been married for 34 years. We have 2 wonderful grown sons, and I have 5 grandkids. Most recently, we have 2, I couldn't believe it either. Most recently, we had a set of twin girls, and they're 5 months old, and they're just absolutely adorable. But I didn't know 2 boys could produce that many that fast, so that was kind of interesting for us. But the twins, I think, are what took us over. But they are wonderful. We're so excited. We love being grandparents. I thought being a parent was great, but being a grandparent is really special and very, very, very fun for me. I don't know if my daughter-in-laws always appreciate everything grandma and grandma do, but we sure have fun in it. I want to tell you a little bit about the office, and if you have more questions, we have a little walk sheet that we've done. And on one side, it tells all the responsibilities of the Secretary of State. It's one of the things that the Women's Club said to me when I first started talking about running for Secretary of State. Before we had anything, they said, please tell us what the Secretary of State does. Most people know it's elections, about the elections and the issues that we have. But the Secretary of State really has multiple roles in the state, and I believe one of the most important constitutional office roles that we can have. We preside over there's 5 main divisions, which you have the elections, which I just talked a little bit about, and I am here to tell you one of the main things, one of the main reasons that I am running is because I do not believe in same-day registration, and I do not believe in same-day voting. And my opponent does, and the things that are being said are that I am taking away your rights, that I'm going to take away your privilege to vote. So you will hear that over and over again, and you'll know what they're talking about. That's what it is. So I am very, very adamant about that. There's also the commercial recordings division, there's the notary division, and you know that there's been a lot of talk in the paper over the last several years. There were some issues with notaries, and what had happened is there was some illegal things that had happened, and that's being scrutinized. And somebody asked me, how do you find out about those things that happen? I said, through audits or through an investigation if something happens. And usually people do get caught if they've done something. And this was pretty bad what had happened with one of the agencies here locally. And then you have the operations division and the securities division. One of the things that I'm really excited about, that's just 5 of the 8. There's like 8 divisions, so there's quite a bit under the Secretary of State, but those are the primary. One of the things I'm really excited about is you get the position to be in the economic forum. You're a voting member, so you sit with the governor and all of the group that is all together helping to make sure that we have jobs in Nevada and that businesses want to come here. The Secretary of State has a huge job to make sure that this is business-friendly state and to make sure that the fees and anything else, the business license, are all competitive, not only with the western states, but nationally. If you look at New Mexico, it costs $100 for an LLC. Nevada, it's $400. We need to be competitive. So we need to look at all of those costs that we are charging businesses and make sure that businesses want to stay here and they want to locate here. That's very, very important for us. We've got the best weather. I've stuck here for 40 years because I love it here. It's great. So I want businesses to be here because we need to flourish and we need to get back up to the level that we were. And I really believe that we can do that. And through our economic development, we want to make sure that the business understands that we are business friendly. So I am very much opposed to the margins tax. That is very devastating. My opponent has not come out and said where she stands on it, so I'm very excited about that. I was the first one on the chamber's list when they printed it out. I was right there and I was able to sign it as the first elected official to say that I was opposed to the margins tax. So I hope you will tell your friends and everybody else that votes to vote against it's number 3 on your ballot, so don't forget that. And it won't be on your primary, it'll just be on the general, so you know. And I'm not, as Adam's not, we're not on the primary ballot, so you won't see us until the general, which we're both very lucky and very fortunate that we don't have primaries. That's really good. We're very thankful for that. When I was first asked about this and considering the run, I had several of the clerks and the voter registrars that had called me and have worked with me when I was the chair of legislative operations and elections when the Republicans were in charge of the Senate. And as the chair, I went to them and to their meetings and talked to them about some of the legislation and things that were passed. I wanted to find out what were their issues, what were their concerns. And in working with them over the years, they came to me and said, we need somebody that'll work with us. We need somebody that'll talk to us. And we think you're that person, and we'd really like you to be involved, and we'd like you to run, and we'll support you. So I was very honored with that. Also had some from some of the other parties, not the Democrat Party, but some of the others that came to me and said, we won't put anybody up, so there's no nonpartisan, there's no libertarian in the race. There's a Green Party, but that doesn't take away from Republicans. So I'm very, very excited with the enthusiasm from the people within our state that have asked me to run. A little bit more about myself. Again, my business background, my husband and I owned a convenience store. We owned a 7-Eleven for 13 years, and I sold it when I was first elected in 1996, which it's like my husband said, it's like a boat. You're very, very excited the first day you get it, you buy it, and you're really, really excited that day that you sell it. That's exactly what happened with having 7-Eleven. It was a great experience. Our youngest son was 2 years old when we bought it, but I tell you, it was a wonderful experience. They really learned how hard you have to work. And that's one of the things that I believe is really important for Secretary of State. You have to have somebody that knows Nevada. You have to have somebody who has a business background. My parents were in small business, and we worked as a family. Everybody worked together. Our family was the same. Our boys came down, and they learned, about stocking, about if somebody doesn't show up, and it doesn't matter if it's a holiday, mom and dad have to work. And we might not just work one shift, we might work 2 shifts or 3 shifts. So we know what it's like to sign that paycheck on the front. We understand that. And we know when we had lean times what we had to do, just like our state should do. If you don't have the money, you don't spend it. And we had to learn that. But my parents had already told me that. There were no free credit cards in our house. You had to work for everything that you got, and you showed respect. And I'm very, very excited for the values that my parents gave all 6 of us kids. I came from a family of 6, and I'm very proud of my family and all of the things that they've done. We have several small business people within my family as well, and they understand what we're going through here in Nevada. They live in Minnesota. I've got one brother in Missouri, but they understand. If you know anything about Minnesota, which I know there's some of you here that are Minnesotans, yes? I was born and raised there, but the taxes there are absolutely incredible and very much out of control. If they want something, they just tax you more, and that's unfortunate. My leadership roles have really helped me and benefited me a lot. I've enjoyed it. I've been able to travel all over the United States and Canada, through the leadership programs, and also as an elected official for the state, I've been asked to be on different, the GOPAC. I was on a national committee that helped look at national races. So it's really been an incredible adventure. This is an education you can't get in a classroom. There's no classroom, I don't care what professor it is. You can't get this education. So I've been very, very blessed, absolutely blessed to have the opportunity to serve, and that the constituents in Senate District 8 have allowed me to be in. This is my 18th year in November when they have the election. Whoever is running in my seat, there's 3 Republicans that are running for my seat right now and 1 Democrat. And when that happens, they will take over, and then I'm no longer a senator, but hopefully I'll be your Secretary of State. So I'm asking for your support today, and if you go on my website, it's Cegavske4sos.com. We have some brochures back there, we have t-shirts, we have yard signs, and if you can't put a sign in your yard, you can take the stake off and just use the sign. It makes a great sunshade in your car. You can get visors down. Don't drive like that, please. I don't want to get in any trouble. I don't want to end up in front of any of the judges. But when you're parking at the grocery store or in your driveway, when you just back your car in, and the sign's right there. So I would appreciate any help, because the human billboards, the t-shirts, are wonderful. The billboard in your car, that's free advertisement. They can't, I don't have to disclose that you're advertising for me, even though you really are. So when you go to the gym, when you work out, when you walk the dog, how many are walking the dog every morning? You just think Cegavske, because I'm a dog lover, so you'll want to wear your t-shirt for me. But I really appreciate you having this tonight. It's so wonderful to see all of you. I'm so thankful to Betty Rumford. She's been such a good friend and such a stalwart supporter for so long. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. God bless you all.
We'll hold question and answer until after we hear from Adam Laxalt. Barbara did mention a lot of her material there is in the back. I'll tell you, I worked on a campaign a few years ago when I first arrived in Las Vegas, and when the campaign was over, the candidate lost, and there was a whole room full of t-shirts stored away, and I thought, boy, there's a waste. Get them out there, wear them, and use them. The next guest, Adam Laxalt, fourth generation from a family known here in Nevada for public service. Adam is an honors graduate from Georgetown University. He served as a JAG officer in the United States Navy, pulling a tour in forward operating bases in Iraq. He assisted training in the detention and prosecution in criminal courts in Iraq and helped them modernize their court systems. He also served as a special assistant U.S. attorney and assistant professor of law at the U.S. Naval Academy, and a special advisor to the Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security. So he's had a very colorful career. Back here in Nevada, Adam built a successful law practice and continued his community service through the Catholic Charities of Southern Nevada. He's one of the founders of the St. Thomas More Society, which is a legal ethics and leadership society. He was recently appointed by the Nevada State Bar to serve on a civility task force. Attorneys, civility task force. Who knew? Anyway, he wants to preserve the liberty of Nevada's citizens and businesses and stand up for Nevadans against federal government overreach. And that's what a competent Attorney General ought to be doing. So I'd like to introduce to you our next Attorney General, Adam Laxalt.
I feel like I should not stand here after that introduction. Thank you very much. And as for the civility task force, I'm sure the judges in the room are the ones who most want a little more civility out of lawyers in the state. So Barbara mentioned that I don't have a primary, and I think that's for two primary reasons. One, my opponent, Ross Miller, is the current Secretary of State, and I think people are unified in the belief that we can't have him as an Attorney General in this state. And I've been able to earn the support of the broad spectrum of Republicans to make sure that everyone's on board and we're all one team to go against my ultimate opponent in November. I think the second reason was to have the early support of guys like Congressman Joe Heck and Governor Sandoval and Senator Dean Heller. They were willing to support me from day one, and knowing how important this office is, this is the reason why I think people are willing to support me and help me get out there in the arena, which as everyone knows is a very tough arena. When I was making this decision, I had a 4-month-old baby at home, and only 3 years out of the Navy, and building a practice and all those things that we do in the state, grow a family and grow your business. But, the stakes, I believe, were too high. And unfortunately, there was just no Republican that was willing to run for this incredibly important office of Attorney General. I want to tell you a little bit about why the office of Attorney General is so important. There are two primary functions of the Attorney General. The first function is to be the top law enforcement officer for the state. You are the top cop, you're the top prosecutor. Your job is to make sure our communities are safe. You're supposed to work with all your sheriffs and DAs throughout the state and make sure that you have your ear to the ground and you know when something is happening that's going to affect our families and our communities. So one recent example that's been hitting the news is heroin. Has everyone heard about the rise in heroin, unfortunately, in our communities? Well, and this not only is this a growing epidemic, what age group do you think it's hitting worst? Teenagers, young people. And sadly, the sheriffs have helped explain some of why this is happening. This has come about because a lot of kids got hooked on pills, and pills became less accessible and more expensive. So you have a 16-year-old that's casually moving into something as horrific as heroin, one of the most addictive substances in the world, and eventually they're on needles, and there's just no going back from something like heroin. So, this is something that an Attorney General can have a profound effect on, so long as they're engaged, working very hard with the communities, and making sure that if we are missing laws and we are missing tools and resources to attack these sorts of epidemics, that the Attorney General is building consensus and is fighting these things. As a JAG officer in the U.S. Navy, your job was to be the top law enforcement officer of the base. You worked with the cops day in and day out, military police, and you were on the ground and making sure that anything was going on in the base. Your CO relied on you to make sure that the bad guys are being prosecuted and any of the tough questions were being answered. It would be at 2 a.m. If an incident happened on the base, whether it was a serious incident like a rape or something like a DUI, my phone, the duty phone they call it, was what rang. And I'd get the call and be a 19-year-old military policeman. Sir, we got an incident. What are the next steps? So these are some of the experiences I gained in the Navy. I've worked with law enforcement extensively. It's something, as he mentioned, it's something I did in Iraq as well. Not only did I do detainee operations, but I was there with the U.S. Army Military Police Brigade. And this brigade was in charge of over 20,000 detainees in a very, very tough place in the world at the time. So, I'm very comfortable working with law enforcement. It's something I'm eager to do, and something that this job needs to be very, very active about. So that's the one primary function. When people think of the Attorney General, they think of the top cop, the top law enforcement officer. Now, the other job that I think is absolutely paramount for the Attorney General, that would probably be news to everyone in this room, is that you should be the top protector of the state against the federal government as well. So, in the last few years, I believe, this is not an extreme comment, I think this president has been one of the most lawless presidents in history. In almost every sphere of government, this president, rather than work with Congress, our elected representatives, has said, if I don't get my way, I'll go on my own. This is not the country that we founded. This is not the system of government that made our nation great. Our Constitution, which is one of the great things that America gave to the world, in fact, was designed to prevent this. It was designed to prevent a Republican or Democrat president from ever being able to say, we're going alone. I'm getting my agenda through whether you like it or not. And unfortunately, over the past number of decades, our Constitution is being eroded over and over and over. And I can tell you why this is happening. I went to Georgetown Law School, and what I encountered there was a true shock. I went to law school already with a reverence for our Constitution and our framing, and the disregard for the Constitution by the elite law professors around the country is scary. I mean, if you think there are problems with judges now, I promise you, this is just the beginning. I mean, they are teaching law students that there is no such thing as law. Law is politics. You go in and you go get your policy through. You find the answer that you want, and you come up with an argument to match that. You know, this is not our country. And I don't think this is a partisan issue, truly. And hopefully, this is something that is resonating so deeply with the American public. I know it's resonating with Nevadans. People are concerned what's happening to the rule of law. They're concerned with what's happening to the Constitution. That's a very long wind-up to say, what can the Attorney General do about that? Well, in Texas, I'll use an example. The current Attorney General has filed 37 lawsuits in the past 2 years against this administration. They have at least a dozen headed to the Supreme Court. In 1999, there were 11 Republican Attorney Generals. Anyone want to take a guess how many there are now?
One.
The other way. Someone said 0. There are 24 today. With my race, there could be 27 Republican Attorney Generals.
Okay.
And do you think that's an accident? The reason that's happening is because the people in all of these states are saying, we need someone to stand against the federal government. We need someone to defend our Constitution and defend our state's ability to control our own destiny. So 24 Attorney Generals, actually, before last year there were 25. 25 Attorney Generals joined the Obamacare lawsuit. This is the best example I can illustrate of why an Attorney General is crucial and why it matters. When they brought that lawsuit, the academics and the intellectuals and the political class made fun of it. They said, there's no limits to government. Come on, of course the government can regulate health care. This is a frivolous lawsuit. In fact, in this state, our Attorney General would not actually join that lawsuit under that rationale that it was not a real lawsuit. Well, it was certainly a real lawsuit. It went to the Supreme Court, and this is a bit technical, so bear with me. We lost the case. Everyone knows that. But there were two major victories, but one major victory that came out of that case was they said the government, under the Commerce Clause, could not make us buy health insurance. They could not tell us what to do. So I know everyone was disappointed that we lost the ultimate case, but the point was a line was drawn. And it was an answer to someone like Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the time. What did she say when they asked Nancy Pelosi, when they were trying to pass this? They said, where in the Constitution do you have the power to pass this kind of wide sweeping health care law? Anyone remember what she said?
Are you kidding?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? She said, just like that, indignant. What do you mean? There are no limits to our power. We can do whatever we want because we're in charge. It's that kind of attitude, Republican or Democrat, that will tear down this country. We are an enumerated Constitution for a reason. Government has specific powers that we gave to it. So the good news about that Supreme Court decision is that they told Congress that you have some limits to your power. I believe in the next few years, a number of these Attorney General lawsuits, which is a brand new thing. I mean, you never heard about Attorney General lawsuits challenging and protecting our Constitution. These are making their way to the Supreme Court. We could come out with 2, 5, 10, hopefully 15 rulings that say this administration has gone too far. This is what I want to join. I want to be part of this force, part of this line of defense that can protect our state, protect our Constitution. I want to write my own lawsuits. I want to make sure I'm working with guys like Senator Heller, Congressman Amodei, Congressman Heck. We have something called the Sage Grouse that's a little less important to Sun City here, I'm sure, but it should be important to you because they're trying to put another animal on an Endangered Species Act, and it would take millions of acreage outside of control of Nevada. And it's actually a nonpartisan issue in this state. Democrats and Republicans have told Washington this will cost us more money than you can imagine. This will absolutely crush our business. What does Washington tell them back? We don't care. We don't care because they have a different agenda. So this is why I'm running. I think we're at a crucial time in our country. I think people are very, very concerned. This is not an ideal time for me. Anyone that raised kids. My baby is 14 months old now, and the cutest thing in the world. Thankfully, they've been on the road with me a fair amount, but I was willing to jump in now because there's just no time to waste. We cannot let this office just sit for the next 4 years and not challenge these things. And I think that the people that are supporting me, the people that know me, know I will be a fighter. I will fight as hard as I can for this state, something I'm very passionate about, and I very much appreciate your support. Obviously, we are 6 months out before a November election, but I want to make it clear. And I keep traveling the state, and the good news is everyone thinks I'm going to win, and people think I'm going to win handily. But I have to tell you that my opponent is a 2-term sitting Democrat Secretary of State. And his dad is a very recent governor. And, he's got a very big head start. So even though you may think that I've got a very good chance, don't take anything for granted. And if you're getting our emails, forward it to 10 people. If you're following us on Facebook or any of these other things, spread the word. This is how conservatives have to fight back. This is how we can win. We may not be writing a lot of checks or doing a lot of money. We're gonna help with votes, getting the word out, grassroots. And this is what I need out of you all. I need everyone in Sun City to know how important this race is by November. So thank you so much for your support, and I really appreciate everything. And I guess at this stage we'll be open for questions.
Okay, we can have our audience votes. Testing. And if you can, please keep the commentary fairly brief, get to the question, and let us know whether the question is for Barbara or Adam. Okay, Steve.
Thank you for attending, everyone, this evening. We appreciate it. This is for our next Attorney General. We have a thing called the Unaffordable Care Act, other known as Obamacare. The question I have is, the Attorney Generals have been fighting Obamacare, which King doesn't care, and the court jester Holder doesn't care either, that we want to do something and take it back or get rid of it, and they keep changing the law. The law doesn't really exist anymore. They're just picking and choosing what they want to implement. How will you, as the next Attorney General, handle the situations that Nevada is going through in regards to Obamacare? Everyone hear me?
Yeah. Or you can use this.
If everyone can hear me, I'll just stop. Thank you. I normally actually discuss Obamacare in a little bit more length, so thank you for giving me the reminder. President Obama has done 21 unilateral changes to Obamacare. I mean, this is something that just absolutely is unprecedented. This was as we all know, multi-thousand-page act. There were a lot of clear lines of how this thing was supposed to function. And even though we knew this thing wasn't going to function well, either way, it's still a law and it's passed. And now the president needs to follow this law. 21 unilateral changes, 15 to 20 are probably unconstitutional. And this is a huge problem. There are, I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's about 20 attorney generals that are in the process of filing a lawsuit right now. They've already sent letters to the president and the powers that be that have said these acts are unconstitutional. You want to change these rules, you go to Congress, you be a leader, you work with them, and you amend the law. And they're going to file a lawsuit, and they're going to attempt to take that to the Supreme Court. And that's another good example of why this matters, and this matters now, because there's things happening every single day. The Attorney General, we need an active Attorney General to get in and protect us from the next few years of this administration. This is not a partisan issue. This is Republican president. I feel exactly the same way. We cannot have a U.S. president run away. We can't have an attorney general that, for the first time in history, an attorney general is telling state attorney generals, you don't like the laws, disregard them, ignore them. That's just never happened before. And I seriously ask, how are we supposed to live under that? I mean, what are the rules then? If the rules change that easily, then none of us have anything to go off of. Businesses, for sure, have nothing to go off of. If Obama can unilaterally change Obamacare every 2 weeks, all the money and time they're spending, and probably bothering guys like Congressman Heck and his head of his office, saying, how do we adapt to this thing? What are we supposed to do? And every few weeks, the president just, as he said, he uses his phone and his pen to do whatever he wants. That's just, we cannot live under that system.
Hi, I have a question for both candidates. I would like to hear from each one of you. Recently, the situation at Bunkerville where the Bundy people were set upon by the BLM agents brought to the front page of the newspapers and media the situation with Nevada being owned by the federal government, more or less. Something like 87% or 86% of Nevada land is owned by the federal government. So within the purview of the job description for both of your jobs, is there anything that you could do to bring back these lands to Nevada?
Thank you for that. As a Secretary of State, it's a little easier. As a Secretary of State, there's not a lot, and Adam can address it from Attorney General's because there is some. But I want to tell you, over my tenure, we have, even though it's been quiet, we have been working on this issue to try to get our land back as long as I've been in. And even before I came, this has been an issue for the western states. When you look at the state, all of the East Coast, they all have their land. And then the Midwest got theirs, but the West has never, ever been able to get theirs from the federal government. And we have been working on it. Utah is really organized. They're very, very well organized. I belong to a national conference, and we get together a couple times a year, and every year, and I've belonged to that since 1996, and every year we would get together, and there's a group of us that we've always tried to see how we can work with our elected officials in DC to try to get our land back. And we were so frustrated because we couldn't figure out, if Harry Reid's been there that long, he knows the issue for the state, why don't we even have an acre? Now, he's more than willing to negotiate and trade some of our land for something that is a profit for those other than Nevadans. So that's a real issue that we've had. There have been some exchanges, but it hasn't necessarily been for the whole of Nevada. It's been for some personal. But I have to say that I'm very frustrated that people don't know that we've been working on it that long and that we've been trying. But I guess it was because when this event came to head is when people were starting asking, where have you been? What have you been doing? Why haven't you been involved? And why didn't you go down there? Actually, we were told as elected officials not to go down there because they felt that we could be in danger and they didn't want the responsibility or the risk. So we did go there. Most of us did. The 99% of us didn't go. But it wasn't that we didn't know what's going on. We've been kept absolutely in the loop of everything. From the governor on down, from Heller, we've been kept absolutely in the loop as elected officials as to what's been going on. They are trying. I know that it's a big deal. And I just wanted you to know that it has been on our radar. Utah's been doing a great job, Arizona, and we are very, very hopeful that if we keep pushing, and we keep pushing, we know that Dean Heller's on our side, we know that Joe Heck's on our side, we know that Mark Amadei is on our side, that we're really pushing to get this and make sure that it happens. So thank you for asking that. But as the Secretary of State, other than the economic development, sitting on the Economic Development Authority, knowing that if we have some of our land that we can develop, that we can exchange and make, companies want to come here and we have that land to lease, we need to do that.
Well, when the Bunkerville stuff happened, Certainly as someone that's running to be the top law enforcement officer, I mean, I was absolutely concerned that in this case, Mr. Bundy wasn't paying his fees and wasn't following the law. But, I made it very clear, as did Governor Sandoval, that under no circumstances can we have an agency like the BLM that is not trained law enforcement to have these kinds of weapons, to move into that environment, and to risk lives. So, thankfully, the outpour and the outcry really was heard, and they stepped down and made sure there wasn't any bloodshed or anything like that. But what I wanted to focus on at the time, and I think it's a great jumping off point, is the fact that we do not have this land. The fact that we have BLM that we have no control over. And it doesn't matter if 90% of Nevadans all feel one way. We cannot change BLM's mind. And that just should not be. That is something we need to get that control back. We need to get those lands back. So, it's something as Attorney General, I'll work absolutely as hard as I can to fight back against the BLM. There are some lawsuits that some AGs have filed against the BLM. There are ways that Attorney General can stand at the front, just like some of our legislatures, but we have the power to sue. And as everyone knows, nothing catches people's attention like a lawsuit. And so, one thing I hear from other attorney generals that are doing what I want to do, which is sue the federal government when they're overreaching, is that sometimes it changes the negotiating point. When you let the federal government know that they don't get their way, they don't get to just decide. Instead, we say, hold on, you want something in the state, you need to negotiate with us. And sometimes the lawsuits can really shift that bargaining point. So it's a vital time with the BLM, and I mentioned the sage grouse, they're interrelated. We have federal agencies, again, that have a different agenda. The environment, certain things they want, period. They don't really care about what's most important for the economy and for Nevadans. So this is something that I absolutely want to fight with this office.
Barbara, I just wanted to clarify one thing, because in canvassing for Mark every day, the voters are asking me about the margins tax. It won't be listed as the margins tax on the ballot. And this is what I'm trying to do to make certain that we start calling it by its proper name, because voters won't know what it is. Thank you. It's the Education Initiative.
Thank you.
What's the last one?
Question number 3, and I was just up in Reno at one of the a Republican group, and they have the neatest thing. They have a little stop sign about this big, and it says stop, and then it says question 3, and it's to stop it, and it's red, and you can't miss it, and they're wonderful. I wish I would have had some in my purse to bring, but it is widespread. Every business. We just came from ABC, and they're all business people. It's let's see, what is it? Associated Builders and Contractors, and all of the businesses. There were like 700 people. I mean, it was unbelievable. All the booths and the people there. Every single one of them said no to 3. Are you on no on 3? It's absolutely a no on 3. Absolutely. Had no problem signing that. But it is true that there is, when they say it's for education, again, that's something that we've talked about before, there's no guarantees. When you have things that go into the general fund, there's no guarantees on where that money is going to go. But it is a very poorly written initiative. Absolutely, it is one of the worst. And when you have the AFL-CIO on the side of the chamber, that's history. And if they think it's that bad and they're against it, but actually the workers know that it's going to hurt the businesses that they work for. They got it. They understand it. They went to the union and they said, you guys cannot support this. You can't be behind it. We'll lose our jobs. And right now, Nevada can't stand to lose any more jobs. We cannot. We have to build up, not let go. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'm over here, Adam. I have a question. Do you know the name Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch?
No.
Know him? You
I'm
should get
familiar
to
with
know that.
Judicial Watch.
He has 100 lawsuits against Obama. I'll give you, I didn't bring any literature with me, but I donate to Judicial Watch.
Right, no, I'm familiar with Judicial Watch.
And, pardon me?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Judicial Watch.
They're doing a lot to try and stop him as best they can. My next question is, why is Mark Hutchison being accused of voting for Obamacare when he's the one who fought against it? And what did Obama have over Roberts? Now, he did work with Sandoval, and I assume he went along with Sandoval's wishes. I think Sue Loudon's I don't think she's telling the truth. Am I wrong?
Stan, let me chime in here. I think you can't ask us the rationale behind something that Mark Hutchison did or is accused of doing. He's not here to answer the question.
But he knows Mark, and he might have his opinions.
No, I'm not getting involved in this. Thank you, though.
No one's going to touch that.
So this is a good question for both of you because the Secretary of State's office, Securities Division, investigates securities fraud in this state, and the designated prosecutor for securities fraud cases is the Attorney General's office. And so how do you think that you could work together to protect the citizens of Nevada from securities frauds and our markets, which are very important to protect from securities fraudsters?
Yes, I mean, the way the setup is that the Secretary of State in a few areas does do investigations, and this is one area where they actually kind of push fairly far into the law. And then they pass it for the Attorney General, hopefully in a nice bow, so that the Attorney General can, investigate it, prosecute it. So, I don't have any particular wisdom on it. I'd love to chat with you about it. I know it's an issue. I've seen a few briefs that, we have major issues in this valley, especially with kind of the transient nature of Las Vegas and all of the tourists that come in and out. And we need a reliable market, or else people are going to be scared to invest in Nevada. So it's something that obviously I'll pay attention to. The Attorney General has a couple hundred lawyers that works for them and has multiple different departments. And this is something to be very important.
Thank you. Well, as you know, as a judge, sometimes we don't find out things until there's a victim, and which is really sad. Somebody brings you the information and the investigation starts, and then you find out there's a lot more that has gone on, and it's very sad. But there is a good correlation and a good connection between the two offices, and you have to have somebody willing to prosecute. That's very, very, very important. But through the investigations, as we found out with one of the big ones that happened a few years ago, is the notary fraud that I was speaking of, and that's when somebody asked, how do you find out? It's through investigations. But one of the other things you can do is audits. You can do audits, random audits, and go through and look at different areas where people have filed and what they're doing. And I think that those are very, very important. And I do think that they have a team that should be able to go out, and then again, there's a random selection. That's what, at the legislature, we would randomly select one of the divisions to audit, and we'd go in, and every single, without hesitation, the years that I've been in, every time we select one of the divisions, you go in, you find a multiple list of issues that they violated or haven't been doing correctly, and I'm thinking, I know that, 5 years ago, you guys were audited and you had this list and you said, yes, we're gonna, bring it up to where it needs to be, and then, we're finding the same thing. So I think you have to be consistent, but you have to do random audits so that they're not expecting you to come, but I think that's very important. That answer your question? We can talk.
This is to do with voting,
and not necessarily the voting fraud, but within the Republican Party, where we have endorsements in the primary, where we felt as though maybe the people were smart enough to figure the primary out. And they had endorsement from the state. I asked the Clark County district, because we voted against having endorsements at all, because that's when the people get to speak, not the elite in the party. Do you guys have anything to do with the endorsement thing? Because the state endorsed one candidate, and it sounds as though they're doing it on my part too, and I resent it.
Thank you. I am someone also that I don't believe in endorsements prior to. I think the people are the ones that need to speak. So that's just my personal belief. No, we have nothing to do with party affiliations. The parties each do their own thing, and we have nothing as a state agencies to do with that. It's the parties.
But they keep speaking about a 2.2.1 that says that they're not to endorse, and I was wondering.
Oh, I think that's within their own bylaws.
So it's a loss for us to try to do anything because we need to cause a problem in the first place.
Well, as somebody who is a member of a party, I believe that everybody should participate and not complain. Everybody go to the meetings, even though they're very long and tedious, but you need to go and have your voice heard. I think it's very, very important because those who sit home and think things are bad, you're looking the wrong way. So get involved and make a difference because.
Well, they let us talk after most people have left.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. That was a huge issue for me, a very big issue. I can't defend it. I'm not going to defend it. Okay.
This question is for Adam. As a family court judge, my question is, when you become Attorney General, will you still be able to sit on that committee on civility?
I have no idea.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's an easy one.
One more question? One last question?
This question is also for Mr. Laxalt. I don't know how, what you would have to do with this, but I am very, very concerned with the judges just throwing out people's votes. People vote a certain way, and then it comes before a judge, and he'll just throw that decision out and just do something totally different. Do you have in your mind what I'm talking about, the cases that I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. There are, I think, 3 or 4 states that voted against marriage between same sex, and then the judges would not uphold it and say it was constitutionally against the Constitution, against these people's rights, so that they totally overthrew the people's will. And I see this happening over and over, more and more, as judges just become really inflated to their own ego, what they think they can get away with, kind of what you were talking about. From your position, is there anything that can be done other than waiting until they can be voted out? And some of those judges we can't even vote out.
Well, you're talking about 2 different issues. As relates to the marriage amendment, the Attorney General's directly tied into that. A few months ago, our Attorney General decided not to defend the Nevada's marriage constitutional amendment. And I said at the time, and I still absolutely believe, it's the job of the Attorney General to defend the Constitution, to defend it whichever direction the voters voted. The Attorney General needs to defend the Constitution. We need to make sure this isn't a political decision. And, I understand. I hear it every day that the winds are changing and this thing is moving. But to me, as an Attorney General, that's irrelevant. I cannot take a poll to decide whether or not this is a good law or a bad law. And I think if we do that, and there, in some defense of this Attorney General, she's now not the only one to do it in the country, but it is unprecedented. I mean, no Attorney Generals of either party used to ever do this sort of thing. And I do think it's indicative of a big problem which is politicizing the law. And this is unquestionably, to me, an issue that needs to be decided by the voters and needs to be decided by Nevada voters. And it's going to be decided. And it may be decided at 16, it may go the other way. And if it is, the Attorney General needs to support it. Even if all of a sudden, a year later, the momentum swings the other way and everyone's saying, how could you be on the wrong side of this issue? You know, it's the other side now. Well,
Is
people
there
change
any
it, you
recourse
have to.
for those judges other than waiting until they would be reelected?
No, I mean, so you have our federal judge originally upheld this, but there's mixed federal judges now that are doing this around the country, and they're coming down on either, as it relates to marriage, they're coming on either side of this issue. And these are lifetime appointments, and you know, there's nothing that can be done really, other than they're going to keep going up to the Supreme Court eventually. You know, what we can do is know that the ability to appoint a federal judge by a U.S. president is today one of the most important things there is. That's unfortunate. It should not be that way. A judge should not be that powerful because they're not elected. We cannot change our judges like you. You feel passionate about it, and someone on the other side feels passionate about it. Neither one of you can do anything about what a federal judge decides. And I'm opposed to that. I mean, we need to leave these kind of decisions with the people.